melatonin and growth hormone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about optimizing all hormones. What hormones are you talking about next to DHEA, pregnenolone, thyroid? Are you also talking about melatonin and growth hormone? Because those are two that we don't talk much about on this channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Growth hormone's a bit of a trickier one because it can often be cost prohibitive. And all over the world it's cost prohibitive, but particularly, where I do my health coaching in Australia, growth hormone's very expensive. But absolutely, we have to look at that, because if someone has a growth hormone deficiency, nothing will make them feel better like growth hormone will. But a lot of the time it can be cost prohibitive. And this is where people lean in towards using peptides like ipamorelin CJC, or potentially things like tesamorelin, MK677, etc., which I'm not a big advocate for, just because of the lack of long-term human studies compared to growth hormone. I think we should stick with safe than sorry. But this is definitely a factor that guys need to look at. But one thing that's very important when it comes to measuring growth hormone, measuring growth hormone in the blood is almost a waste of time, unless you're testing if your growth hormone that you bought on the internet is real, and in which case you shouldn't be doing that anyway. But growth hormone testing is quite redundant because of how short the half-life is when we're looking at natural secretion. So we tend to measure IGF-1, and IGF-1 is a long-term, or it's a longer half-life metabolite of growth hormone. So we use it like a proxy for growth hormone activity, and it's not a perfect proxy for it, but it is one of the best tools that we can use that most people have access to. The thing that guys need to consider, and I see this mistake made all the time, is that if you have hypogonadism, if you have low testosterone, your IGF-1 will be lower. So if you're doing a first consult with a clinic, and maybe they're trying to sell you something that you don't need, if your IGF-1 levels are suboptimal, on the lower end, but not completely bottomed out, and your testosterone is very deficient as well, and you're going to start TRT, I believe that you should wait at least for the first 12 weeks to do your first blood panel to see if your IGF-1 levels come up, because they almost always do. And this can prevent you, one, buying a medication that you don't need, particularly something like ipamorelin, which, again, people can look into the long-term research on that and decide if that's something they want to do. I don't think ipamorelin is dangerous, but I just like to be conservative. So that's an important thing to note, is that if you have low testosterone levels and your IGF-1 is suboptimal, fixing the testosterone, if that's the lower hanging fruit, may resolve that issue. That's number one. But number two, one of the main issues that I see with younger men who have suboptimal IGF-1 levels and potentially by association low growth hormone levels is they're drinking alcohol too much and they're not sleeping properly. So when you can improve the sleep, particularly by resolving sleep apnea, you can often get the IGF-1 level to resolve. And not only is that going to be extremely important for your overall health in resolving the root cause of the sleep apnea, which is often obesity or obstruction to the airways, but you're also going to get much more fringe benefits, because if you've got a secondary hormone deficiency and it's a cause that can be resolved, like sometimes we have hormone deficiencies from things like chronic pain or other things going on that are intractable. They can't be fixed. And that's a different side of the story. But if we're dealing with something that is a resolvable secondary shutdown, your body is, again, going back to the car analogy, I like using car analogies. If the body is pumping the brakes and you're coming in and going, oh, I'm going to pump the accelerator because more accelerator is more good. If we know in a car, if you do that, it's not going to move forward like a smooth accelerator the way you want it. So one thing that's important is anytime we have a secondary hormone deficiency that's not induced by age or something that can't be fixed, we need to look at, well, what's the root cause of why is this low? And if there is something that we can pick up, and it's very important that practitioners can pick these things up in going, okay, well, maybe we need to look at diet, lifestyle, habits, and the things that I see are the biggest ones. And there's a lecture on this channel, the War on Masculinity Part 2, which is from the Unspoken Silverback Summit online edition, was look at all the things that you're not doing that you should be doing, and then look at all the things that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing, and fix that. And most of the time, in my experience, guys know exactly where they're fucking up with those. They know exactly where they are. And I think it's important that men can have someone sit them down and logically teach them and explain to them and go, hey, you're not getting away with it. Like maybe, in your family or in your friendship group, it's normal to have a few beers every night. You're not getting away with it. And we're seeing a result of this. And I think it's important that men understand and they can go, okay, this is why this is happening. Because if you say, you've probably been told to stop drinking before, but now if you can understand that, oh, that's causing this, and while someone else might get away with it, I'm not, and that's, individual genetic variability, different lifestyle habits, etc. But that can just be the way that it is. So it's very important when we're looking at growth hormone and then segueing onto melatonin, is one of the main reasons that guys can have melatonin deficiencies is poor sleep hygiene. If you're blasting your phone with blue light in your face until the moment that you fall asleep, your melatonin secretion is going to be all messed up, 100%. So that can be a tricky one to look at. When it comes to melatonin, my best tip, and I'm sure this will make a great little short reel, is use micronized melatonin, not regular melatonin. I know that you can go down to Walmart or you can go on iHerb or Amazon and buy melatonin for like $5 a bottle, but micronized melatonin, just like micronized pregnenolone and micronized DHEA, and again, I don't sell this stuff. You can just Google micronized melatonin, you can find it. Life Extension make one in a 1.2 milligram dose. It's called, I don't know why it's called this, but it's called IR/XR melatonin. So that's a 1.2 milligram dose, which is a great starting dose. And then a brand called Quality of Life, they make a 5 milligram one. And they're both using a patented micronized version called Microactive, which is spelled how it sounds without the E on the end. And micronized oral hormones bypass first-pass metabolism in the liver. So they basically get absorbed in the gut. So it creates basically like a prolonged release. And this not only gives you much greater bioavailability of melatonin, but it also, one of the issues that we see in studies is that sustained release melatonin releases for too long. So you get that impair your waking melatonin, your waking cortisol response, because you're secreting melatonin into the daytime. But when we use Microactive, we can get a more delayed release, more bioavailability, but not that it impacts your wakefulness in the morning. And I have found that using micronized melatonin, and ideally you get it from the pharmacy, that's one of the main benefits of pharmaceutical grade melatonin is it's micronized. But when we're looking at, getting access to it affordably and, all over the world for guys, you can jump online, get these brands, specifically use these particular versions. And this tends to give people not only a better response to melatonin, but it also tends to get rid of that groggy, just crappy feeling in the morning that comes with taking melatonin that a lot of guys get. Now, it doesn't resolve it for everyone. There's plenty of guys who take, 1 milligram of micronized melatonin and they still don't feel good in the morning. They still feel groggy and crap. That probably means, and again, this is just a guess and my theory, that you don't need more melatonin, that your melatonin response is great. But for the guys who are doing things like shift work, for people who are like working in fields where they're like nursing, or I work with a lot of guys who do fly in, fly out mining work, all different types of shift work for response workers. This can be something where melatonin can drastically improve your health because melatonin is an essential antioxidant in the body, free radical scavenger. So you want to have optimal melatonin production at night, but ideally you want to be able to make your own melatonin. And the way that you do that, there's a way that you can set up your phone. You can Google how to do this, where I'm just talking about iPhones. I'm sure you can do it on Android phones. I just don't know how to do it, but you can set it up so if you press the button 3 times, it will pull all the blue light out of your screen. It will only be red. And then you can also program your phones and your laptops. I've got a program called Flux on my laptop, where it will basically pull the blue light out of the screen as the sun goes down, and it will adjust it based on where you are. So yeah, Flux is what I've been using for the last decade. I have that on my phone. I have Night Shift on my phone. And then if I am scrolling through my phone or watching something on it at nighttime, which I'm human, I'll pull all the blue light out and watch it with the red light on, and I'll find that will help me sleep drastically. The other thing that's nice as well, if guys are like, I want to benefit from melatonin, but I can't tolerate it, tart cherry juice is a natural source of melatonin, and it's very high in other antioxidants. The capsules and the soft gels, I don't think contain enough, but you can buy bottles of tart cherry juice, which is organic, off Amazon or iHerb, and 15 to 30 mil of that will contain a biologically significant amount of melatonin.
If you wish to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member and check out the links in the description of all the things I'm associated with. My ebook on compounded testosterone cream, multiple workout programs, Mizumi skincare, online pharmacy NP labs, and a list of Amazon links to the supplements we recommend.